Welcome to Van Life with Steve, and thank you so much for joining me for a visit to North Cascades National Park in northern Washington, which is our first stop in the Pacific Northwest. Getting right to the park summary, the park was established in 1968 by President Johnson. It only sees 30,000 visitors, but that number is misleading. The reason why is the park's really composed of four regions. You have the North and South North Cascades National Park units. Those are bisected by the Lake Ross National Recreation Area, which also sits to the east of the park, and that recreational area sees about 1 million visitors a year. And then to the southeast is the Lake Chelan National Recreation Area, which sees about 50,000 visitors a year. So those four areas form what's known as the North Cascades National Park complex. And so when you add those up, you're talking about 1.1 million visitors. The main features of the park are first going to be the mountains, which exhibit a great deal of vertical relief, which is how much of the mountain basically pokes up out of the ground. And I would say these are very quite appropriately known as the American Alps. There are also over 300 glaciers and lakes within the park, and the park is the most heavily glaciered area of the contiguous United States. You also do have some dams you can go and visit. As for wildlife, you will see your usual park staples of moose, elk, black bears, coyotes, mountain goats, bighorn sheep. It is rare to see grizzly bears, and they may try to reintroduce them within the park. There also have been some reports of wolverines. However, those kind of sightings are extremely rare. For weather, it's going to be one of your cooler national parks. There's a lot of snowfall. The only paved road that travels through the national park complex, State Route 20, is typically closed between November and April. You need to be mindful of if there's a lot of rain or anything. This is very steep terrain, and so it's vulnerable to mudslides. And 2 hours after I traveled through the national park, there was a big mudslide that took out the road. So you need to be aware of that. You're not going to get much cell service while you're traveling within the park, but you will find some around the visitor centers and around the small towns that are around the perimeter of the park. My recommendation and top tips are going to be at the end of the video, so please stick around for those. Briefly before we enter the park, I do want to mention Eastern Washington, which is actually kind of a desert or kind of like the Great Plains. I thought Washington would be a bunch of evergreen trees, and that's actually not the case. The eastern 2/3 of the state is what you just saw there. It's a bunch of yellow grass, and the soil looks a lot like volcanic ash, and it's a pretty interesting thing to see. Okay, so now we're headed straight into the park. We're going to pull off at our first stop at Washington Pass, and we'll see a few mountains here, including the quite appropriately named Liberty Bell Mountain. As we move along from Liberty Bell Mountain, if you're enjoying this content, I'd appreciate it so much if you please give me a like, and please consider subscribing if you want to see more videos. I'm up to 45 national parks at this point, and this is National Park 10 in the video series, so we have another 35 more to go, in addition to a bunch of cities and all that. Please turn on the bell so you don't miss my next video, and if you've been to North Cascades National Park and have a special memory, I'd really love to hear about it. So please leave any special memories from the national park in the comments below. Thanks so much, and let's continue with the video. So next we're gonna go hike to Rainy Lake, and you pass through this forest, and it was pretty wet, and it almost seemed like a rainforest. And now we're at Rainy Lake. This was a really nice hike, and in the distance there you can see Rainy Lake Falls, which is an 800-foot tall waterfall, and that's actually half a mile away from where I'm standing. That's how big the lake is. Now we'll head back to the van, head to our next stop. For our next stop, we have the Ross Lake Overlook, which is the namesake of the Ross Lake Recreation Area. And seeing as how Ross Lake was created by the Ross Lake Dam, how about let's go ahead and hike down to it. And this is actually a bit of a longer kind of hike. You can see our first look there at the Ross Dam, which is 540 feet tall and 1,300 feet across. It impounds the Skagit River, I hope I pronounced that right, to form Ross Lake, and the power is sent to Seattle and the surrounding areas. For our next lake, we're going to head to the Diablo Lake Overlook, which is known for its unique color, and you may have seen this lake on a Windows computer at one point. It was not that good of a time of day, and also you still had the wildfire smoke. Diablo Lake is to the west of Ross Lake. It gets its turquoise color from sediment that's been crushed by glaciers that runs off into the lake. Pretty unique. And here we'll have a look at the surrounding mountains. Moving along, we'll now take a stroll on the Gorge Overlook Trail. And here's a look at Gorge Creek Falls. And as we head to our final stop, the Sterling Monroe Trail for a peek at the Picket Range of the Cascade Mountains. My recommendation for North Cascades Park is it depends on how much hiking you want to do. So this park, it's incredible scenery and very beautiful. As you can see, the mountains are obscured by the wildfire smoke and clouds. However, 93% of this park is designated wilderness, and so they can't really build any infrastructure. And so compared to Yosemite, there's just not a lot of infrastructure here. There's no lodge, there are no restaurants or anything like that. So if you're looking for your standard national park experience, you're not going to get it in this park. However, if you really enjoy backcountry hiking and want to get away from the crowds, this would be a great park for you. So that's what I would consider before visiting the park. I do want to reiterate, this is an absolutely beautiful park. The only real top tip I have for you is for boondocking. Most of that is going to be kind of in the western end down State Route 20. And if you get in a bit of a jam and can't find a spot, if you maybe talk to the rangers, they might give you the heads up on a really nice spot to boondock. So with all that said, I appreciate you so much for joining me for this visit to North Cascades National Park, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks and take care. Bye.